Discover the incredible journey of Wu Zetian, from hidden concubine to life-changing Empress of China. Zoe's heart raced as she clutched the dusty journal in her hands, the pages yellowed with age and the cover frayed from years of neglect. The attic felt like a tomb, remnants of her family's past buried under an avalanche of boxes and forgotten treasures. She opened the journal, and the words leaped off the pages, whispering tales of defiance and power. Wu Zetian was no ordinary woman, it read. She shattered glass ceilings and claimed her rightful place on the throne. In that moment, Zoe felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps she could do the same in her own life. At 16, Zoe was already accustomed to carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. With 2 part-time jobs and her chronically ill younger brother, Liam, she often felt like she was drowning. Her parents had sacrificed everything to seek the American dream, but that dream felt heavy. Their expectations loomed over her like dark clouds, stifling her aspirations of being a writer. She wanted to pen stories that resonated, tales of strength much like the one unfolding in Wu's journey. Days blurred into nights as she found herself caught in the exhausting dance of homework, work shifts, and family responsibilities. School was no refuge either. The hallways echoed with whispers and the harsh realities of being an outsider, navigating cliques that seemed impenetrable. And with each smile she faked, each laugh she forced, Zoe felt a piece of her dream slip further away. But as she read about Wu Zetian's relentless spirit, something awakened within her, a determination to rise. Then she saw it, a flyer for a prestigious writing contest, offering a scholarship that could change everything. Zoe's heart raced with potential. Could this be her moment? But home was a battlefield. Her parents insisted on stability, pushing her towards a degree in something safe. Writing is a hobby, they would say, shaking their heads. Each time they dismissed her dreams, she felt like Wu facing a world determined to silence her. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Zoe's blood ran cold when she experienced a public humiliation at school, an incident that spiraled her confidence into a shadow. The laughter of her peers echoed like a cruel symphony, drowning out the voice of her dreams. But in the depths of her despair, she thought of her brushes with rejection, her rise to power against impossible odds. Inspired, Zoe knew she had to confront her fears, both at school and at home. As Zoe stood at the precipice, ready to voice her truth to her parents, the air thick with unspoken words, a question struck her. Could she find her voice amid the clamor of expectations? Or would she succumb to the weight of it all? The uncertainty lodged in her throat as she took a deep breath, heart pounding wildly. A crossroads awaited her, and the next steps would define everything. Zoe stood in the living room, the faint scent of her mother's cooking wafting through the air, mixing with the chatter from the television. She could hear her parents' laughter and felt a pang of guilt, as if even thinking about confronting them was a betrayal. But as the journal's words echoed in her mind, the flicker of hope sparked into a flame. She couldn't ignore it. Is everything okay? Her mom's voice broke through her thoughts as she stepped into the room, wiping her hands on a dish towel. A flicker of concern crossed her mother's face, but the warmth reflected in her eyes brought Zoe back from the edge. Yeah, Mom. I'd like to talk about something, Zoe said, her voice steadying with each word. Her heart raced as she pushed back the rising tide of doubt. This was her moment to channel her inner Wu Zetian. Her father glanced up from the couch where he'd been watching the game. What's up, Zoe? There was casualness in his tone, but the look in his eyes felt sharper, almost wary, as if he could sense the weight of what she was about to say. I saw a flyer for a writing contest at school. If I win, it could help with college, maybe even a scholarship, she blurted out, the words tumbling out like stones from a pocket. I really want to give it a shot. The room fell silent. Zoe could feel their startled gazes drilling into her. She could almost hear their hearts wrestling with surprise and resistance. "Writing?" her father asked, disbelief woven into his voice. "But our whole goal is to find something stable. Something that pays." Her mother shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting to the ceiling, avoiding Zoe's gaze. "Honey, writing is just a hobby. You can still enjoy it, but think about a degree in something that guarantees a solid job. That's what matters." "But what if it doesn't have to be just a hobby?" Zoe's voice broke as vulnerability washed over her. "What if I could really make something of myself? I want to tell stories that matter. Like Wu Zetian, I want to rise." A tense silence enveloped them, each tick of the clock echoing in the stillness. Zoe held her breath, praying for understanding. She needed them to see the fire burning inside her, a fire ignited not just by her dreams, but by the weight of history she clutched in her hands. A small frown creased her father's forehead, and her mother's shoulders slumped as they processed her words. Within the anxiety thrumming through the air, Zoe sensed a flicker of doubt nestled beneath their exteriors. But she was resolute. She wasn't giving up without a fight. "I want to enter this contest," she said, boldness spilling from her lips, her heart hammering with each statement. "Writing is more than just a hobby to me. It's who I am. I want to be respected as an artist, not just as an obligation to the family. I will always help Liam, but I need this. I need to try." Her parents' expressions shifted, uncertainty mingling with something softer, a hint of pride. Still, they remained quiet, voices caught in throats heavy with expectations. "Just think about it," Zoe added, guilt-laced with hope. As she turned to leave the room, an avalanche of emotions pressed down on her: fear of rejection, hope for acceptance, and the desire to forge a path of her own. Would they come around? Would they let her chase her dreams? Zoe breathed deeply, wrapping her fingers tighter around Wu's journal. It held her inspiration, her drive. She couldn't let go of that. As she climbed the stairs to her room, her mind raced 1,000 miles ahead. The contest required a submission by next week, but what if she wasn't good enough? Zoe rested her head on the desk, her heart a storm of doubt and determination. The words of Wu Zetian whispered into the silence. She had to act, and fast. The next day the notebook opened, and her pen began to move, the blank pages transforming into a canvas of expressions. This was her chance. There was no turning back, but as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, a lingering question remained: could she truly find the courage to embrace her voice amidst the chorus of expectations and fears? Zoe sat at her desk, the afternoon light filtering through her window, illuminating the scattered pages of her notebook. Each word she'd penned was a lifeline, pulling her from the depths of uncertainty that had threatened to drown her. The stories danced in her mind, waiting to be birthed onto the paper, but there was still one thing holding her back: fear. The fear of taking that next step. As she stared at the empty lines, she thought about the contest. What if she poured her heart out only to be met with the cruel reality that her words meant nothing? What if her family was right, and this dream was just a whimsical escape from a world that valued stability above creativity? That evening, dinner was a quiet affair. The sounds of forks hitting plates and the soft shuffle of chairs filled the room, but the distance between Zoe and her parents seemed to widen with every minute that passed. She caught her mother's eye for a fleeting moment, seeking a spark of encouragement, but her gaze drifted away into the murky depths of uncertainty. "Are you still thinking about that contest?" her father asked, breaking the heavy silence. His tone was careful, as if each word was a stepping stone across a pond of thick ice. Zoe nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah. I'm working on my story. I want it to be good. Good enough to win." Her mom chimed in, her voice hinting at that familiar worry. "Writing is subjective, honey. It's not just about skill, it's about luck too." Zoe felt heat rise to her cheeks as she clenched her fists, holding back a flood of frustration. "It's not just luck, Mom. I want to create. I want to connect with people. Isn't that worth something? Her father shifted, the sharp lines of his jaw tightening slightly. Zoe could feel the weight of his reality pressing against her ambitions. Look, Zoe. You're smart. You have potential. But you've got to think about what's really viable out there. Viable. The word stung. To her parents, it only added more focus to their crafts and jobs. She felt it was a poking reminder of their expectations, layers and layers of responsibility that pressed down on her spirit. With heavy hearts, they returned to their plates, and for Zoe, the vibrant world she envisioned dimmed into shades of gray. That night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the journal resting beside her. What does Wu Zetian say? She whispered to the pages that had become such a comforting companion. Courage. Power. Strength. But was she truly ready to uncover the story within herself? Her own transformation awaited, determined. Zoe reached for her pen. The ink was her voice, swirling with all the dreams and desires she harbored deep inside. As she shrugged off the blanket, full of hopelessness, she envisioned herself in the place of heroes, weaving tales of resilience, of overcoming fear. What if she could fight those layers pressed upon her like a thick fog? The pen began to dance across the paper. Even as doubt crept back, she wrote fiercely, allowing the words to spill out without restriction. Once there was a hidden voice. But just as she began to lose herself in the rhythm of creation, her heart jolted. A sudden gust of wind rattled her window, causing the curtain to flutter, and Zoe paused, heart racing. Was this a sign? Or just wind? Turning to her phone, she clicked through her messages. A notification about the contest had appeared. The heart-pounding reminder of deadlines and decisions ignited an urge to dive deeper into her writing. A chance to rise. But with mere days left, she stood at a crossroads. Would she risk it all for a chance to be seen and heard? As the evening settled into darkness, Zoe faced a choice: stay tangled in fear or plunge headfirst into the unknown. Her future relied on the courage to write her truth. With her heart pounding like a drum, Zoe took a deep breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But would the words flow enough to reveal her voice, or would she remain trapped in the shadows of expectation? Zoe woke early the next morning, the sun barely peeking over the horizon, casting soft rays into her dim room. The morning was quiet, a stark contrast to the battle raging in her mind. She glanced at her desk, where her notebook sat, pages filled with the beginnings of something significant. The contest deadline hovered like a specter, urging her to put pen to paper one last time. She felt like a superhero preparing for her mission, except she was armed with nothing but words. But words, to her, felt just as potent as any battle-ready weapon. She had to harness that power. The early morning stillness allowed Zoe the space to think clearly. What if she could channel her fears into her writing? With a flicker of determination, she pulled the blanket off herself, its weight no longer comforting but burdensome. Coffee brewed in the kitchen, the familiar scent of rich grounds swirling through the air, bringing her the kind of warmth only home could provide. The aroma was like an invitation to wake up, to rise from the shadows into something brighter. Zoe wrapped her hands around a steaming mug and took a sip, relishing the warmth that spread through her. She returned to her desk and opened her notebook, the pages fluttering slightly as if they were alive, waiting for her to ignite them. The ink awaited her touch, each letter potentially transforming her doubts into a narrative of freedom and exploration. What if she told her own story, the journey of a girl who dared to dream despite her fears? As she began to write, she let her thoughts spill onto the pages with a new vigor. Her pen glided across the paper, each stroke emboldened by the resolve that started to grow within her. Zoe wrote about the hidden voice, the longing to express herself, the invisible chains of expectation that held her back. She crafted characters inspired by herself, her struggles, her family's thoughts, and the weight of the world pushing down. Her fingers flew as the words poured out, becoming a dance of purpose. She wrote about Wu Zetian, the way she had fought against oppressive constraints to carve her own path. The notion of transforming her life, of stepping into her voice, ignited something deep within Zoe. If Wu Zetian could rise to power, she wrote, then why couldn't she, too, find a way to harness her dreams into something real? Time slipped away as Zoe lost herself in her creation, the outside world fading into mere background noise. It was intoxicating. The thrill of expressing her truth made the walls surrounding her shrink, and in those moments, she felt alive, powerful. But then, deeper thoughts surfaced. What if the words she poured out were not enough? What if the contest judges were harsh, their critiques echoing her parents' doubts? That nagging fear clawed at her mind. Would her reality crumble once more under the weight of disappointment? Suddenly, a knock on the door broke her concentration. Startled, Zoe almost knocked over her coffee. Zoe? Honey? You okay? Her mom's voice broke through, laced with concern. Yeah, I'm good. Zoe shouted back, but her heart raced. Would expressing her truth spark understanding or spark more disagreement? With a deep breath, she returned to her notebook, the words swirling restlessly in her mind. She had to finish her story, had to meet the deadline. This was her moment to share. But as she wrote, a new thought emerged. What would happen if she unveiled the truth of herself, flaws and all to her family? Could her story bridge the gap between them? Would they understand her struggles? The ink continued to flow, and with each word, she felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. This was more than just a story, it was her life, her voice. But that looming deadline was creeping ever closer, each tick of the clock nudging her toward the brink. Zoe couldn't help but wonder, had she left enough time for another chance at revelation? As dusk began to settle outside, she put her pen down momentarily, feeling the weight of both her story and her hesitations. Would this be enough to bring her family together? Or would it only drive them further apart? Determined, she braced herself. By sunrise, everything could change. Would she have the courage to reveal it all, or would she hide behind her words yet again? Zoe took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside her. The twilight sky mirrored her mood, darkening with blues and purples, each moment ticking away. She stared at her notebook, where the words felt both liberating and heavy, like the weight of a secret too big to carry alone. The contest was just hours away, and somehow it felt like the twilight between her two worlds, the one she knew and the one she craved. She slid her fingers across the pages, feeling the indentation of each word she had written. Each line represented a piece of her heart, the fears, the dreams, and the whispers of doubt that she had tried so hard to ignore. But now they roared, demanding attention. Could releasing her truth free her, or would it tighten the chains of expectation even more? Zoe glanced out the window, her eyes landing on the backyard where she and her brother had played countless times. She remembered their laughter, the cool grass beneath their feet, and the unfiltered joy of childhood. But now, the place felt shadowed with memories of arguments over college options, over what was best for her future. Discord hung like a cloud, ready to burst at any moment. A sharp rap on the door brought her back to reality. Zoe. Dinner's ready. It was her brother, Jacob, his voice casually upbeat. She could almost hear the unwelcome judgment behind it. He always acted as if everything was smooth sailing, but Zoe knew he felt pressure too, even if he didn't show it. Coming. She called back, with a forced cheerfulness. The last thing she wanted was a lengthy dinner filled with false smiles and sideways glances. She picked up her pen, her heart heavy as she penned a few last thoughts. What if she wove a narrative that would open the door, allowing her family to see her? The fear of judgment was daunting, but the fear of silence was, perhaps, more suffocating. Just as she finished, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window. Their house felt so small, the world outside vast yet unreachable. As she rose from her chair, uncertainty gripped her. Would she let her family read her story? Or would she stash it away, a coward's choice? In the dining room, the atmosphere was as thick as gravy. Her parents were engaged in conversation, but the room felt disconnected, each person lost in their separate thoughts. Jacob glanced up, a half smile on his face. You look like you were in a solid zone. What were you writing? Zoe hesitated. There it was, an invitation or a trap, she couldn't tell. But the urge to let her truth spill out danced just beneath the surface. Oh, just a story, she said lightly, wishing her words could fly like balloons escaping from a child's hand. Like what? That weird sci-fi romance thing? Jacob teased, a challenge flickering in his eyes. A smile tugged at Zoe's lips, but inside, a war raged. No, more like me. Exploring who I am. The smile on Jacob's face faltered. Her parents looked up, curiosity threading through their expressions. Zoe could feel the weight of their gazes, the walls she had built around her starting to tremble. Nice, Jacob said, trying to change the subject, but Zoe sensed the uncertainty looming like a storm cloud, hanging heavy over them all. She couldn't escape the growing urgency. Dinner was winding down, but the real feast was inside her. Mixed emotions, pivoting between fear and hope. With every tick of the clock, the deadline inched closer. Wait. Can we talk after dinner? Her voice came out stronger than she felt, cutting through the chatter like a ray of light. All eyes turned toward her, a mixture of surprise and concern washing over their faces. Would they see her for who she truly was? Or retreat back to their own worlds, each too scared to bridge the gap? As they nodded slowly, Zoe's heart raced. What she had been building for so long was ready to be shared. But could she really reveal her story, the heart of her struggles? The weight of her truth hung in the air, and as the last of the fading sunlight slipped away, Zoe knew she was on the brink of a revelation. Everything could change tonight. But would she take that leap into the unknown? Zoe sat at the table, her heart pounding like a drumbeat in her ears. The dinner plates were an afterthought, remnants of half-eaten meals scattered around as her family resumed their mundane conversation. The sounds of utensils clinking and soft murmurs felt like an ocean vast, but she was drowning in it. Each minute that passed felt like a lifetime, a weight heavy on her chest. How was school today? Her mother asked, her voice bright and hopeful, oblivious to the turmoil bubbling within Zoe. Fine, Zoe replied, forcing a smile that felt impossibly tight. She captured the quick glance shared between her parents. It was a silent exchange that spoke volumes, their constant worry, their expectations for both of them. Jacob chuckled lightly at something her dad said, and Zoe felt another pang of isolation. She pushed her food around her plate, the taste of impending honesty lingering bitterly on her tongue. Could she really break the surface tension here? Was there enough air for her to breathe? When dinner finally ended, she felt relief wash over her, mingling with anxiety like oil and water. Her family cleared the table, but Zoe lingered, staring at her notebook on the counter, its pages filled with a part of her that no one had truly seen. The shining ink was a beacon daring her to share. She had spent long hours crafting words that reflected her truth. They called to her now, begging to be set free. Hey, you good? Jacob's voice broke through her reverie. He stood leaning against the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, a brow raised in concern. Yeah, just thinking, Zoe replied, pushing a stray hair behind her ear. About that story? He stepped into the room, his presence somehow both comforting and overwhelming. Zoe hesitated. Should she confide in him, too? Would he understand? Something like that, she murmured. Listen, it's okay to share with us. I mean, we are family, right? He flashed a reassuring grin, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. The weight of unsaid understanding pressed between them. Taking a deep breath, Zoe nodded. I know, but what if my story isn't what they want to hear? Then it's still yours. It's what matters. His words rang true, echoing softly in the hollow space of her insecurities. He was right, but doubt danced at the edges of her resolve. Are you ready? Jacob urged softly. Her hand moved instinctively toward the notebook. The clasp brushed against her fingers, and she halted, staring down at her reflections. Everything she had penned in detail, the worries, the dreams, the confessions, all she had built up to share a piece of herself, ready to soar. Or crash. Yeah, I think so, she finally whispered, a mix of determination and fear igniting in her gut. Jacob stepped closer, nudging her gently. The encouragement plain in his eyes made her foundation a bit steadier, just for a moment. All right, but you have to promise me you'll be honest. No filters. Jacob spoke, the seriousness wrapping around the words. Our family needs to hear you. The room felt charged with unspoken emotions as her parents returned, hands busy with cleaning. They hadn't altered their routine, but there was a palpable tension in the air. Okay after that. Zoe's voice shook but steadied as she squared her shoulders. As they settled back around the table, Zoe could feel the room shift, everyone on the edge like a coiled spring. Every heartbeat thudded in her ears as she clutched the notebook, the moment of truth almost within reach. Can I read something? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mother stopped mid-task, dishes half full in her hands, while Jacob leaned forward, eyes glued to her as if she were about to unleash magic. Zoe opened the notebook, her fingers trembling as she turned to the first page. This is well, me. The silence swallowed her words as she began to read. Every line felt like a jagged piece of herself was being exposed, and tears threatened to spill over. But the warmth of their gaze, the electricity in the room, urged her on. She dove in headfirst, the words flowing like a river, and in that moment, the world outside faded away. Would they embrace her truth? As the last line left her lips, she looked up, each face painted with surprise, curiosity, and something deeper. They were listening. Or were they waiting to pull back? Zoe's heart raced, the question burning in her mind: had she just crossed into a new world, or would they retreat back to what was comfortable? What was next awaited just beyond the threshold? Zoe's breath caught in her throat as she scanned her family's faces. Her mother's hands trembled, glancing between Zoe and her father. There was a flicker of something: fear, concern, pride? Jacob's eyes were wide, and he seemed to hold his own breath, waiting for the air to clear. What did you say? Her father asked, his voice a mix of surprise and confusion. It was the kind of reaction that made Zoe's stomach drop into a pit of anxiety. I wrote about my feelings, she said slowly. The words tumbled out, surprising her even. About everything: school, friendships, me. Her mother placed the dishes down, the clatter echoing loudly in the stillness. Zoe, she said softly, you never told us. Why didn't you share this before? Zoe's hands shook. I didn't know how. I thought. The words failed her. So many thoughts swirled around her head. What were the right words? I thought you wouldn't understand, she finally managed. Jacob interjected, Mom, we can't expect her to just open up when we don't think to ask. This is important. Important? Zoe felt the heat rise to her cheeks. I thought it was just nonsense, she blurted, the rawness of her voice surprising even herself. There's so much inside, and I didn't know if I could show it. Her mother's expression softened, her gaze narrowing. Zoe, you write beautifully. I had no idea you were feeling this way. Why would you think it was nonsense? We want to hear what you have to say. We love you. Tears pricked at Zoe's eyes. Love? It felt too heavy to hold, too immense to contain after years of feeling invisible beneath the family's expectations. I guess I thought if I masked everything, it would be easier. For you. For me. She paused, looking down at her ink-stained fingers. But it never was. Jacob leaned in, his voice low, you're more than what you show. You have depth. Just because it doesn't look perfect doesn't mean it's not worth sharing. Zoe felt a spark ignite. You think so? The doubt still lingered, but here was a lifeline, raw and unguarded. The sincerity in Jacob's gaze felt warm like a blanket. Absolutely, he nodded. You don't have to be perfect. Just be you. Zoe's heart raced again, pounding as if it wanted to break free. She breathed in deeply, as if the weight of the moment could shift if she just held it long enough. What if I really showed you who I am? Her mother stepped nearer, placing a hand gently on Zoe's shoulder. Then we'll love you all the more for it. We promise to listen, without judgment. Zoe met her father's eyes, searching for reassurance. His expression softened too. We're all trying to figure things out together, Zoe. This is a journey for each of us. Don't hesitate to share what's in your heart. And just like that, the silence cracked open, revealing the warmth of vulnerability. Zoe's breath steadied, emboldened. She could feel the fibers of her truth intertwining with theirs as if she were step by step weaving herself into her family's fabric. Can I read more? She asked, her voice stronger now, nowhere near perfect but shaped like a shared experience. She glanced down at her notebook, page after page filled with her thoughts, feelings, hopes, and fears raw and real. Yes. Jacob exclaimed, leaning in excitedly. Please, we want to hear everything. With renewed courage, Zoe flipped to her next piece. As she began to read, feeling the words take flight, the tightness in her chest began to ease, not completely gone, but lifting. In sharing her truth, she had cracked open a door she thought would remain closed forever. But maybe, just maybe, this was just the beginning. The thrill of release washed over her, and with it came a daunting question once they had heard her words: how would her family change? Could the walls built from years of silence finally come down? Zoe's voice trembled as she read on, the anticipation in the room buzzing like electricity. What other stories lay buried inside her, waiting to emerge into the light? Zoe continued to read, her voice growing steadier as she shared snippets of her life. Each word felt like a piece of her soul, a fragment of the unseen weight she had carried. The room was silent except for the cadence of her voice weaving through her family's memories, secrets, and hopes. I wrote about losing my best friend, she said, glancing up, meeting her mother's soft gaze. How it felt like the ground vanished beneath me. She recalled the long nights spent staring at the ceiling, wrestling with the loneliness that chased her. Jacob leaned in closer, his eyes intent on her. You can't just let it all pile up inside. You did that with your friend, and it hurt you. Zoe nodded, the tightness in her throat deepening. I didn't know how to talk about it. It felt small compared to everything else you all were dealing with. I just wanted to be strong. But strength isn't just holding it all in, Zoe, her father interjected, his voice gentle yet firm. It's about being honest, even when it's hard. It's finding the courage to show your pain rather than hide it. The warmth of her family's support wrapped around her like a comforting hug. Zoe could feel layers of her past peeling back, revealing raw feelings she thought she had forgotten. I don't want to be strong anymore, she whispered, the weight of her admission settling in the air. I just want to be honest. With a shaky breath, she turned another page. As she read about her struggles with anxiety, she caught her mother wiping a tear from her cheek. You have no idea how brave you are, Zoe, her mother said, her voice bold despite the tremor. This is incredible. Zoe's heart fluttered with a mix of fear and hope. What if I scare you? She asked suddenly, the thought invading her mind like an unwelcome guest. What if you don't like what you hear? Zoe, Jacob said firmly, we're not going anywhere. No matter what you say, we're here for you. Her breath caught once more. What they were offering felt like a lifeline in turbulent waters. It was terrifying and freeing all at once. With each new piece she shared, Zoe witnessed her family's faces transform. Concern faded into empathy, and apprehension morphed into understanding. It became a dance of vulnerability. The more she shared, the more they opened up in return. I wish I had known, her mother admitted, her eyes glistening. I felt so helpless when I saw you struggling. I never wanted you to feel alone. Zoe paused, her fingers gripping the edge of the paper. You thought I was strong, but it felt like I was drowning sometimes. The atmosphere shifted, and warmth filled the space where silence used to linger. Here, walls began to crumble. As she finished reading her final piece, a story about hope and dreams for the future, Zoe looked up, a daring spark igniting behind her eyes. So what do we do now? Her father broke into a smile, a mix of relief and pride washing over him. We take this moment, Zoe, and build from it. Let us commit to being honest with each other. No masks. Just our true selves. Together, Jacob added, his voice filled with conviction. Zoe felt a new weight settling in her chest, not the burden of unshared thoughts or hidden fears, but the gravity of authentic connection. Suddenly, a thought struck her with fierce clarity. What if I wrote about us? About this journey together, as a family? Excitement flickered in her mother's eyes, mirroring Zoe's own eagerness. But alongside that thrill lay a sobering realization. What if she really opened up the family's stories? What if old wounds surfaced, and they had to work through them, together? Zoe leaned back, her heart swelling with possibility. They had taken this first step, but the path ahead was wide open. Where would it lead them? As Zoe's mind raced with the ideas, she realized there were still so many stories left to tell. Would her family embrace all of them? Would they emerge stronger, or would their truths expose deeper cracks? With these thoughts swirling in her mind, she took a steadying breath, ready for what lay ahead. What unexpected revelations awaited them on this journey? Zoe's heart raced as excitement mixed with dread. The weight of so many untold stories rested on her shoulders. She searched her family's faces for reassurance, but they all seemed caught in a web of thought and emotion. Could they really do this together? Her mother broke the silence, biting her lip as if gathering courage. You know, Zoe, we've all held back in our own ways. I've had my share of fears and regrets. Maybe it's time I shared some of my stories too. The admission hung in the air, tender and raw. Jacob nodded eagerly. Yeah, and I think I need to say some things too. There's a lot I haven't told you guys, stuff about my friends, the pressure I feel at school, just the whole teenage thing. Zoe could feel the energy shift again. It was electrifying, a buzz of honesty and vulnerability that hung between them like a fragile thread. What if we all shared our stories together? She suggested, her voice gaining strength. Like a round table? One story at a time? Her father leaned back, contemplating. That sounds challenging but worthwhile. Each of us sitting here has our own struggles. It might be just what we need to uncover the truths we've buried. Zoe's mind swirled with possibilities. This was more than just a written journey, it was a chance to reshape their family narrative. The stories were the threads that could weave them closer, but they also held the potential to unravel their carefully crafted lives. What if I wrote our stories as we share them? Zoe offered, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of the idea. We could create something beautiful together. It could be our legacy. Her father's eyes widened as he caught the vision. That's brilliant, Zoe. Imagine, years from now, looking back at these chapters, at our family tales. As they spoke about the project, a sense of purpose enveloped them. Each of them would take turns sharing, pouring out feelings they had kept locked away for so long. The words would be their truth, unfiltered and real. But what if it gets messy? Jacob asked, uncertainty creeping back into his voice. What if we don't like what we uncover? Zoe reached for her brother's hand, squeezing it tightly. Then we figure it out together. The messy is part of life. It's what makes us who we are. Her mother's smile illuminated the room. We'll have each other's backs. We can be scared together and find our way through. It was such a simple sentiment, yet it resonated deeply. Sometimes true strength came from the willingness to be vulnerable. Okay, Jacob finally conceded, a hint of excitement flickering in his eyes. Let's do this. Let us start tonight. Zoe grinned, her spirit lifting at the thought of embarking on this journey. The realization that they were all aligning, ready to take this leap together, settled warmly in her heart. As the evening unfolded, stories began to flow. Each testimony was a thread, stitching together past wounds and shared histories. Zoe's pen danced across the pages, recording every emotion, every truth laid bare. But with each story revealed, a question loomed in the background: what hidden truths still lay beneath the surface? Would they emerge from this exploration as a stronger family? Or would the uncovering expose more pain than healing? Zoe paused, her hand hovering over the page. What secrets remained to be unearthed, waiting just beneath the fabric of their lives? Zoe felt the warmth of hope bloom inside her as the evening unfolded, and the atmosphere shifted with raw sincerity and shared stories. The room filled with a blend of laughter, tears, and long-held sighs of relief. Each voice resonated with a richness that had long been silenced, yet now flowed effortlessly like a river breaking free from its dam. Her father spoke first, his voice steady but laced with vulnerability. "I want to share something too. When your mother and I came to this country, we carried the weight of expectations, not just our own, but those from our families. I wish I had told you that, Zoe. I thought I had to protect you from my burdens." Zoe felt tears glimmer at the corners of her eyes. It was the first time she understood the invisible struggles that shaped her parents' ambitions. They had poured everything into her and Liam, but now she realized they had also carried their own dreams buried under layers of responsibility. Her mother followed with a gentle warmth. "I wanted so much for you both, a life where you wouldn't have to feel the pressures we did. But in seeking that, I lost sight of who I was, too. I've missed my own dreams. I never meant to suppress yours." At that moment, Zoe felt a powerful wave of understanding between them. This was more than just a conversation, it was a bridge, one that spanned not just the distances of their pasts but connected their hopes for the future. "I never told you about my friends," Jacob chimed in, the sincerity etched on his face. "I feel like everyone expects me to be perfect, and they think I'm always okay. But sometimes, I feel lost and pressured. I wish I could talk to you guys about it, like Zoe." Zoe's heart ached for her brother. In each of their stories, pieces of themselves had been held back, but now they were unlocking the doors together. And then it was Zoe's turn again, the story of the contest, the words that had poured from her heart like a lifeline. She shared how Wu Zetian had inspired her to rise against the noise of expectations and fears, and how that same indomitable spirit had ignited a flame within her. Her family listened intently, their expressions softening as they absorbed the depth of her struggle. As she spoke, Zoe realized this wasn't just about her dream, it was about reclaiming their family narrative as a whole. "I always thought telling my story would be a burden," she explained, "but now I see it's a gift we can share. We each have our battles, and perhaps by unveiling them, we can help each other heal." The air sparked with a new kind of excitement, a collective commitment to transparency. No more hiding behind masks. No more pretending everything was perfect. When Zoe finished reading, silence blanketed the room momentarily. Then her mother reached out, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Zoe, thank you for being brave," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "We're proud of you. It takes courage to open up." The bond between them felt palpable, a web woven from understanding. In that silence, they all could see how far they'd come together, every story another step toward healing. Days rolled into weeks, and the family continued their storytelling journey. Each session peeled back layers, exposing truths and memories anew. They spent evenings huddled close, laughter echoing alongside sobs, confessing fears while embracing the joy of being undeniably human. Zoe's story gained momentum, one thread at a time, creating a family tapestry filled with vulnerability, strength, and love. As they collaborated, her notebook filled with words both raw and joyful, capturing the essence of their transformation. With each family gathering, Zoe could feel something shifting within her, a sense of belonging that transcended expectations. She wasn't just the daughter aspiring to rise, but a storyteller weaving their lives into a shared legacy. Then the day came when she received an email. She'd won the writing contest. The scholarship was hers, joy soared in her heart, yet it felt so intertwined with her family's journey. They weren't just her support, they had become her inspiration. Together, they celebrated her victory, but even more, They celebrated who they had become as a family. As Zoe stood before the mirror that day, she saw a girl who had transformed, a girl no longer afraid to rise, ready to tell her story and share the weight of her heart with the world. And in that moment, her journey became something bigger. It was about finding her voice, reaching for her dreams, but also inviting her family to join the chorus. This was only the beginning. So hear this, it's time to step into your story. For those who have followed, feel what Zoe felt, the weight of fear becoming lighter when shared with love. Don't wait. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.